Namaste everyone. Let us look at the next PYQ, which is rights and duties are closely related and cannot be separated from one another. Question number 12. Okay. So in that context, I want to speak about bit about rights. So why do we have rights? You may say that okay, we have fundamental rights for um, to have a good life or a meaningful life. We have right to speech, freedom of expression, right to life. Those things are there from our constitution. But the original idea of the right comes to have a protection from the state. To have a protection from the state. So the political thinkers, like in 15th, 16th century, they did not see state as a good thing. State is always a bad thing for them. So all they wanted is protection from the state. All they wanted is protection from the state. So in that context, the rights originated. Rights originated to seek a protection from the state. The state is always a bad. So why they think state is always a bad? So there were so many other reasons which I'm not getting into detail. So they think that states is very corrupt. The way the states function is very arbitrary, and hence the men come together to make some form of arrangements so that they will have a protection from the states. So that's why they come up with several rights called right to life, liberty, and we had also right to property. So in 15th 16th century time frame. So that is why the concept of rights were made very prominent or very significant compared to duties. So originally there were no theories, or the people did not speak about the duty. So duties were actually neglected. The concept of duties were neglected. So that's why even when the constitution was framed, there was no part for a duty. Like we did not place, or we did not give respect, or we did not give the due place for the duty, because like duties are always subsidiary. So because why duties are made subsidiary to right, the state cannot expect some duties, or because cannot expect some duties, in the sense that state was always seen in a negative or a bad light. So all men wanted is protection from the state, and state should not intervene in the lives of the men or lives of the people. So in that context, if we say men have a duty, that means the state is expecting something. State is expecting something. So we are thinking about a state which is actually a bad state, and then that's why we are having a lot of rights. So that's why the political thinkers, they did not wanted to have any sort of duties. So but later, like how the concept of duties originated, so like partly we can link it to like Marxism or Leninism. There, for example, an autocratic state will think of having some duties towards the state. That means like being respectful to the state, or for example, if there are laws, like men following with due diligence, or men following without violation of the laws, or if they are expected to serve in the military or something like that, so without questions the people are ready to do, so then the duty comes into picture. Yeah, so in that context the rights and duties are originated, right? So that's why the right plays a significant role compared to duties. The duties are very much neglected. So in this context, if you want to understand what is the relationship between the rights and duties, some call rights are correlative, rights are in correlation to duties. Let's take some example from our constitution only. from Article 21 here, we have right to education. Okay, and then we have a fundamental duty where education should be supported. Education for children 6 to 14 should be given or should be promoted by the parents. Similarly, let's take one more example. Say under Article 21, we have right to environment. Okay, so in the fundamental duty also we have not the right, we have the duty to protect environment. Duty to protect environment, right? So in the sense that, so it is said that when a person enjoys a right, when a person enjoys a right, when a person enjoys a right, he must be, he has a duty to perform. So when someone is given with a right, when someone is given with a right, he has an obligation. So that obligation we call it as a duty. So we also say that so as soon as one gets the right, he also gets some duties, but the duties are not that significant as the rights. So let's look at some of the duties we have, right? For example, we have to respect flag, national symbols, that's one duty. Like protect public property is another duty. So let's think of some significant issues. For example, do we have a duty to pay tax? We have a duty to vote. Do we have a duty to vote? Like voting. So in the context of voting, so the voting as a right is a constitutional right, not a fundamental right. But what about the duty? Right? There is no duty to vote. For example, some of the fundamental rights says like reduce violence, but do we explicitly specify anything on communal harmony? Right? So in the context of a lot of communal issues, so yeah, specifying or making such duties, like it is little tricky. But even with the existing duties also, like if you say like protect public property, it doesn't go and say like how, when, what, all those things, such details are not there. Or some of the rights says like build scientific temper, or some of the duties says build a scientific temper. So in that context, like how one is going to build scientific temper and what do you call exactly a scientific temper, so we don't know. But we have a clear understanding on right, we have a clear understanding on the right, but such understanding, so we don't have it for our duties. So overall understanding on duties is less. So though the question says that the rights and duties are closely related, one cannot be separated from other. Yes, to some extent in some cases like take an example of education, environment, or protection of public property. Yeah, so there is a good relationship. Okay, but in other cases where there is a significant it seems like okay, it is a duty to have, for example voting or paying taxes, or say like education. In case of education, right, so education we only speak of 6 to 14 years, or like for example we have a right to religion. So but when it comes to duty, like, so what is the corresponding duty for a religion, right? What is the corresponding duty for a religion? So we are not speaking about that. And then in the context of climate change, pollution, so our duties are now, like, we have lots of responsibilities. So far we have enjoyed rights. Now we need to step into handling significant issues such as climate change. So in the sense that our constitution should also evolve. So what I'm trying to say is that uh, so so far our understanding on the duties are limited, and the duties that we have enumerated is also limited, and uh, and then fundamental duties that we cover under part 4a is also like very basic, very basic. So it is not extensive, it is not at all extensive, and it is not coping to the modern problems. It is not coping to the modern problems. So these points you may not see from Lakshmikant or any other book. So because these are some of the understanding that I have built over these things. So that's why the rights have a solid foundational background, but the same thing is missing for the duties, because duties are always made subsidiary. So like if it is rights is this thing, the duties are like nothing. Duties are nothing, right? So even in the historical context also, the rights are always preferred over the duties. So in that context, we can say that look, coming back to the question, we can say that rights and duties are closely related. Yes, they are correlative. Some rights and duties are closely related. Yeah, some rights they cannot be separated. When it comes to education, we have a corresponding duty. When it comes to environment, we have a corresponding duty. And then protection of public private property, religion, yeah, we have some consensus. But the expectations from the duties, uh, like it needs to evolve, right? So like what we have is like very basic understanding or basic enumeration of the duties. So in that context, uh, so discuss the importance of the fundamental duties. How it is asking for importance of the fundamental duties. So we can go and say that like we can enumerate some of the fundamental duties, or by taking examples of each fundamental duties, like you can explain it. So let's say, let's just Google list of fundamental duties. So we have 11 fundamental duties. If you want to speak about the significance of the fundamental duties, like you can say abide by the constitution and respect national flag and national anthem. So you can say that okay, it builds a patriotic feeling, it builds a patriotic feeling among the people. Or let me get a screenshot. Yeah, so the next thing is that we can take inspiration from this freedom struggle, and then such ideas we can adopt. Okay, so we are not directly writing these fundamental duties, but we will give a reference. Since we have to speak about significance, we can indirectly speak about these fundamental duties. For example, it's saying that protect sovereignty and integrity of India. Yeah, so in the context of security, maintaining the integrity is also important. And then since these values are also basic structure, to uphold the basic structure, right? These duties are important. So then developing spirit of common brotherhood, this is very much important to reduce communal violence, and then bring social harmony. Then preserve composite culture in the country, right? So when cultural differences are there in the context of migration issues, so the lot of things are happening, there are so many issues. So if we have a duty towards, right, so to preserve a composite culture, so then it is good to reduce the some of the regional issues. Then preserve natural environment in the context of environment pollution, so this duty is important. So then develop scientific temper and humanity. Yeah, so like that, by looking at, or if you remember um, some of the fundamental duties, you can also speak about the significance. And also fundamental duties also come with some limitations. For example, the rights are justifiable, but the duties are non-justifiable. So that's the biggest criticism. That's the biggest criticism on the fundamental duty. So and then duties are very limited in nature. Duties are very limited in nature. Limited. I spoke about the need for an extensive duties, right? Like see, generally like it starts from building a consciousness about the duties, like what is that actually we do. And then in the context of modern problems, we need to have a corresponding duties for the rights we are enjoying. So this needs to be very extensive. Then these are non-justifiable or non-justiciable, right? So yeah, so if someone is not performing duty, then you cannot question, then what is the point of having a duty? So in that context, uh, um, and then even if a society has to progress, even society has to progress, uh, like everybody should have a sense of duty, like what actually I'm contributing to the society, what are my roles and responsibility. So all that we are having is like just enjoying the rights and then not doing anything for the country. So like to some extent, like when things are not going fine, like we can say that, right? So that is why, um, so the duties are largely neglected, and then they have to be brought to focus. So you can also think like this. So when you have an understanding of the fundamental duties, like you go and speak about like what is the importance, why it's being neglected, what are its limitations. So that becomes a comprehensive answer. uh, yeah, so I just gave a background about some theoretical background about rights and duties. They have an origin in the context of liberalism. That may not be necessary for the answer, but if you have an understanding that like rights are very much important than the duties, and then in the context that the state is always seen from the bad light, or in a bad perspective. So the men always wanted to seek a protection, because in like 15th 16th century the state was very dominant, and then it was the rules were very arbitrary, and all people wanted to do is like seek protection. So that's why they came up with the rights. And then duties, like there was no concept of duties as such other than just paying some taxes, etc. But like over the centuries, when some autocratic rule came or some regiment came, the concept of duties evolved. Like okay, what is that actually you're doing for the state? Say okay, we have to be unite. For example, in the context of world war, or in the context of like one state, that like okay, we are one region, and then there is another region, like there is a war between, and then we have to fight, then we have a duty. So in such context, or in the context of state formation, like I say unification of Germany or unification of Italy, so then people actually started looking into the duties. So this is my overall understanding. So hope this understanding helps, understanding from the political science, or some background about the political theory helps to understand some of the features in the constitution as well. So yeah, if you have some comments, so please, if you have any doubts, so please comment, I will respond. Yeah, and if you have liked this, and also please do comment. uh, yeah, that's all about this question. Keep watching. Thank you very much.